History is laden with powerful people that have impacted the world in unparalleled ways. Here are the top 10 most powerful people in human history. Number 10. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was known for his charisma and military mind. He was said to have inspired such fierce loyalty in his soldiers that they would literally follow him anywhere and die doing it. He became the king of Macedonia in 336 BC when he was only 20 years old, and during his rule, he created an empire that was so vast it was unmatched in size at the time. Alexander the Great was ruthless and a force to be reckoned with when it came to combat. In fact, Alexander the Great won every single battle he ever engaged in. He conquered Egypt and founded the ancient city of Alexandria, which is named after him. He became the king of Persia and conquered India too. And he was on course to conquer Arabia when he died suddenly in June 323 BC. His cause of death is unknown, but some historians believe he may have been poisoned. His death brought about internal fighting, and his empire unraveled. However, his influence remained, and the many cities he founded are his legacy to the world. Alexander the Great is inarguably one of the most powerful and influential leaders of the entire ancient world. Number 9. Adolf Hitler. Hitler is best known for his horrific beliefs and role in World War II. However, from an historical standpoint, Hitler was one of the most powerful men that ever lived. Hitler had absolute control over Germany. When he instated the Enabling Act in 1934, he removed himself of any and all direct threats. He banned all other political parties and dissolved the Reichstag. He further strengthened his power by eliminating any influential Nazis that opposed him, ensuring himself the supreme leadership of the Nazi Party. As dictator of Germany, his power was uncontested. He had the power to appoint all ministers, he had the power to approve all laws, and he had the power to declare war. Furthermore, Hitler kept his power by clever propaganda. He untied Germany into a fiercely loyal nation. So he not only had the power of the military and the government behind him, he also had the power of popular favor. And although Hitler is far more infamous than famous, his power and his wielding of it changed the course of history forever. Number 8. Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is one of the most powerful Roman rulers that ever lived, but he had to share his power at first. Caesar came to power in Rome in 60 BC, when he and two other powerful men formed what is known as the First Triumvirate. Caesar, along with Crassus and Pompey, ruled Rome during a very tumultuous time. It's no wonder then that their relationship came to quarrel. Crassus was killed in battle, and Pompey was defeated by Caesar when he defiantly raised an army against Pompey. With 2/3 of the threesome out of the way, Caesar declared himself the absolute dictator of Rome. Caesar's power was untouched. He was popular in the public's eye, and he triumphantly reigned over Rome, providing significant and long-lasting changes to the empire. He also expanded the Roman Empire, and the many changes he brought to Rome have earned him the title of the most powerful man of the ancient Roman world. His rule was not to last, however, as Caesar met a tragic end when he was literally stabbed in the back by members of the Senate, including his BFF, Brutus. Number 7. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte lived from 1769 to 1821 and is best known for his powerful military accomplishments. In fact, Napoleon is one of the most powerful military leaders of all time. Serving as the Emperor of France from 1804 to 1814, Napoleon was at the helm of the famous Napoleonic Wars. And during his reign, he brought about several significant changes to France. He created the Bank of France, brought back Roman Catholicism, and centralized the government. Napoleon also dissolved the Holy Roman Empire. His real power, though, came from his military dictatorship, and Napoleon was able to amass a huge territory during his rule. Napoleon was, at one point, essentially in charge of most of Europe. Napoleon met his fate during the famous Battle of Waterloo in 1815. He was defeated by an alliance between Britain, Prussia, Russia, and Austria. Number 6. Elizabeth I. As the Queen of England from 1558 to 1603, Elizabeth I was a very powerful woman. Although she had advisors and trusted counsels, as queen, she ultimately had the definitive last say in all matters. Her rise to the throne is a long and complicated story, but her rule is pretty straightforward. Knowing that a marriage would split her power in half, as a wife was subject to her husband during those times, Queen Elizabeth opted for the single life, which gave her and her alone absolute power. She was an intelligent and educated woman, and she would not succumb to manipulation or persuasion. Her rule, with its literary, theatrical, and artistic advancements, is affectionately referred to as the Golden Age, as this powerful woman was able to keep the peace in England, even against Spanish threats. She allowed for the finer things in life to flourish, such as art, poetry, and theater, while at the same time understanding the mostly male military world and the necessity of both expansion and defense. Number 5. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, was facing a country in crisis when he became president in 1933. But his famous quote, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself," sparked the hopes of the nation. Roosevelt came to presidency during the Great Depression and took quick action to restore prosperity to the United States. He is famously recognized for his New Deal program, which gave the U.S. an overhaul and provided employment opportunities to the mass unemployed. Roosevelt also had great power over the wealthy, whom he taxed under Social Security. He also provided significant aid to Allied forces during World War II, before the U.S. formally engaged. And when the U.S. was attacked at Pearl Harbor, Roosevelt recognized the need for a peaceful body of representatives to oversee the world, which resulted in Roosevelt's most significant legacy, the creation of the United Nations. Number 4. Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin, 1878 to 1953, was the dictator of the Soviet Union for over 2 decades. He was instrumental in the Allied defeat of Hitler during World War II, and he was instrumental in the muchly needed modern advances of his country. Stalin was appointed as the General Secretary of the Communist Party in 1922, at which point he began a clever campaign to collect supporters. Stalin was very successful in this campaign, so successful in fact that when Lenin died in 1924, Stalin was able to seize power almost seamlessly. He quickly cleared the Soviet of all his enemies, striking fear into the heart of his protesters and the public alike. From there, his decisions went unchecked, including his decision to sign a non-aggression pact with Hitler, despite warnings from his military commanders. He also thrust his nation into a famine that led to the death of millions. And at the end of the war, during his particularly paranoid stage from 1945 to 1948, Stalin set up communist regimes all over Eastern Europe. Stalin died on March 5, 1953, and although he is known for his reign of terror and somewhat bad decisions, Stalin and his power were also instrumental in establishing Russia as a world superpower. Number 3. Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria reigned over the British Empire during a time of huge expansion and great wealth. She was officially Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and was also the Empress of India. In fact, during her reign, the British Empire was comprised of nearly 400 million people and was about 1/4 of the world's population. The British Empire also covered 22% of the earth. That's a lot of people and land to have power over. Queen Victoria's reign was also very long, lasting 63 years from 1837 to 1876. Queen Victoria was a very highly respected woman during her rule, and the British Empire saw unparalleled gains in industry, culture, science, and expansion. In fact, an entire era is named after her, the Victorian era. The 60th anniversary of her coronation in 1897, called the Diamond Jubilee, was one of the largest celebrations ever held in the history of mankind. A quarter of the world's population was given the day off to celebrate, which is a testament to this very respected and very powerful woman. Number 2. Vladimir Putin. All over the news and the internet, there are articles that speak to Putin's power. In fact, he's often called the world's most powerful man. So we would be amiss if we did not include the most powerful man in the current world on our list. But why is he so powerful? Well, it all comes down to checks and balances, neither of which Putin has. Putin's power comes from his dictatorship, his wealth, and his involvement in other countries. It also comes from the people, as Putin has over 80% popular favor in Russia. Russia is both large and rich, and Putin has massive wealth. He also controls one of the largest arsenals in the world. Furthermore, he has stakes in various media outlets, so he has complete control over his country, complete control over a nuclear arsenal, and complete control over massive amounts of wealth. Putin is the single ruler of the largest country in the world, and he doesn't have to answer to anyone. Number 1. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, who lived from 1162 to 1227, is often called the most powerful man that ever lived. He was a Mongolian ruler who unified the tribes of Mongolia, and then went on to create a massive empire that extended all across Asia. He came from humble beginnings, but he was brilliant, bloodthirsty, and ruthless. He created an empire that covered 12 million square miles and lasted for almost 7 centuries. Genghis Khan had a dream, and very few people were willing to stand in his way. He wanted to conquer the entire world, and he came pretty close. But the cost of that dream was high, and it's estimated that Genghis Khan was responsible for the death of 40 million people. If that's true, then Genghis Khan and his dream reduced the population of the world at that time by a whopping 11%. Nonetheless, his power and the massive Mongolian empire that Genghis Khan created puts him in first place on our list of the top 10 most powerful people in history. Check out our previous video and subscribe for more.